Hey, welcome back to the Selling Point Podcast. My name is Anthony Nix, and I am the founder of Transformative Sales Systems. And today we're wrapping up a 6-part series that we've been working on, and I want to end it the exact same way I started it. And that was with reality, with truth. If sales is feeling unpredictable in your business, it's probably not because your team isn't trying hard enough. It's probably because your sales leadership is inconsistent. And I don't say that to be mean or beat anyone up. I say it because this is the moment most CEOs finally need someone to say it out loud. But they don't have a real sales leadership system. And without that, revenue really does just become a guessing game. So today, I'm going to lay it out what real sales leadership looks like inside a small or mid-sized business. And this isn't just book learning theory, and it's not, enterprise corporate stuff. It's just a practical cadence, standards, and behaviors that create predictable revenue. Now, working harder doesn't always work. And the reason that this series exists is because I keep seeing the same problem over and over. Revenue is behind, so leadership responds with pressure, more activity, more calls, more meetings, more tracking, more urgency. And those things can create short bursts of movement, but they rarely fix the underlying problem. Because pressure doesn't create skill, pressure exposes lack of skill. If the pipeline is weak, more activity fills it with more weak deals. If the team can't qualify, more leads just creates more wasted time. If salespeople can't lead buying decisions, more follow-ups won't save them. This is why so many businesses feel like they're sprinting every month just to land where they should have been anyway. So if you want sales to become predictable, it can't depend on adrenaline. It has to depend on leadership. Most small and mid-sized teams, sales teams, are led by a personality. When the CEO is engaged, sales move. And I've seen this in a number of companies. When the CEO is busy, it drifts. When the manager is strong, the numbers improve. When that manager gets pulled into, say, operations or a customer issue, standards start slipping. That's how you end up with inconsistent revenue, even when you have good people. Real sales leadership is different. It's not a mood. It's not an occasional push. It's a system. It's a repeatable rhythm that forces truth, improves behavior, and keeps deals moving every week. And the best part is, once it's installed, it doesn't require Herculean effort. It only requires consistency. Now, there are kind of 6 parts if we want to break down sales leadership. And I'm going to kind of run through those. And this is all in a vein of trying to create repeatable, predictable revenue for a small and mid-sized business. So let me give you this blueprint. Now, sales, like I said, sales leadership breaks down into kind of 6 responsibilities. So let's start off. So first is pipeline truth and not pipeline volume. Most businesses talk about having a full pipeline like it's some kind of safety blanket. Well, I'm here to tell you it is not. A full pipeline can be packed with deals that aren't real, timelines that aren't earned, and opportunities that are only alive because no one wants to admit that they're actually dead. Pipeline truth means we don't let deals live on hope. We ask the uncomfortable questions. Do we know who decides? Do we know how they decide? Is there a real next step scheduled? What problem are they committed to solving? And what happens to them if they do nothing? When a pipeline is truthful and when pipeline truth becomes the norm, something a little odd starts to happen. The pipeline might actually shrink at first, but revenue becomes more reliable because now it is based on reality instead of optimism or someone's feelings. Now, 2, coaching that changes behavior weekly. This one is a growth lever for most small and mid-sized businesses, and they ignore it. Sales coaching isn't just, encouragement. It's not just checking in to see what you're working on, and it's definitely not yelling at people about activity. Coaching is a leader improving how salespeople think and sell in real time. It kind of sounds like this. Walk me through their decision process. Another one might be, what's the real problem they're trying to solve? What's the consequences of not acting? Where are you vulnerable in this deal? What's the next step? And is it scheduled? The reason coaching has to be weekly is because salespeople drift. Everyone drifts under pressure. Without coaching, they fall back into bad habits. They'll stop qualifying. They'll avoid asking hard questions. They follow up instead of actually leading the sales process. And they cling to weak deals. Weekly coaching keeps behavior sharp and deals honest. Now here's the third one. Meetings that drive decisions and not updates. So I don't know how many weekly sales meetings you guys have sat in, but a number of them that I have witnessed before working with those sales teams they're just report outs. Everyone gives an update. The pipeline gets reviewed. People talk for a while, and then nothing changes. Real sales teams don't exist to collect information. They exist to create an outcome. A great sales meeting does 3 things. It forces pipeline truth. It coaches deals and skill in real time. It ends with clear commitments. If your sales meetings don't change behavior, it's not leadership. It's just overhead, a waste of time. Now, 4th on this list is standards. And standards help you eliminate guessing. Small and mid-sized businesses often run sales purely on effort instead of a standard. They don't define what qualified actually means. They don't define what must be true to advance a stage in the pipeline. They don't define what good discovery looks like. They don't define what follow-up should look like. So then every rep is left to just kind of sell their own way, and leadership gets inconsistent results. Standards remove the guessing. It creates a framework for a salesperson to be able to work within. They create clarity, like this is what a real opportunity looks like here. This is what must be true to move a deal forward. This is what we don't chase. This is how we run discovery. This is what we ask before we quote. Standards make your sales process real. And without them, the CRM becomes just a storage place for opinions and feelings. Now, fifth on my list is accountability. And accountability that builds performance and not create fear. Accountability has a bad reputation in a lot of companies because it's being done wrong. It becomes pressure. It becomes threats. It becomes explain why you missed. That does not build skill. It builds avoidance. Real accountability is simple. Expectations matched by action. But here's the key. Accountability without coaching just becomes stress. Accountability with coaching, well, now that becomes development. So instead of, why didn't you hit your numbers? It becomes, what's the plan to improve your behavior and your outcomes next week? Now that's leadership. So number 6 and final on the list is sales rep development that doesn't rely on time. A lot of businesses assume salespeople improve with time. Some do, but most don't. Time doesn't create growth. Development does. Real leadership includes development like, call reviews, deal reviews, role playing with real objections, strengthening discovery, teaching reps to lead buyers instead of chase them. When salespeople improve, revenue improves. Predictability in revenue is always a downstream result of improved behavior. Now, what does the CEO actually own here? Let me just address the CEOs that are listening. You don't need to become a full-time sales manager or VP of sales, but you do need to ensure sales leadership is happening. Your job is to make sure these things are true. There is a cadence. Coaching is happening weekly. Pipeline truth is enforced. Standards exist and are non-negotiable. Accountability is consistent, and that the salespeople are actually improving, and improving using data. If those aren't happening, then sales is running just on luck, hopium, and adrenaline. And you'll feel it in your gut. You'll be surprised by revenue. You'll constantly be pulling deals forward yourself. You'll live in anxiety around sales forecasting. And that's not because you're a bad CEO. It's because sales leadership doesn't have a system. Now, I mentioned at the start of this that I started and founded a company called Transformative Sales Systems. And our focus is on fractional sales management for small and mid-sized businesses. They need leadership, but they can't justify a full-time VP of sales or a director of sales or that kind of thing. They don't have the money to cover $150,000 a year overhead. Or they don't trust that higher enough to bet everything on it. Now that's where fractional sales management is absolutely a perfect fit. A fractional sales leader installs that cadence that I was talking about, creates and enforces the standards, coaches your team members weekly, runs the meetings the way that I've described, helps create pipeline truth, and drive accountability within your sales team. Not as advice, but as a leader embedded in your organization. And what you get is predictable revenue without needing a full-time executive seat sitting right away. Although, if we're doing our job right and we help you grow your revenue, at some point you might need a full-time. And then we're also there to help you find that new sales manager or VP of sales, and then train them on the standards and the processes that we created so that they can take it over. All right. Well, let's I guess wrap this up. This has turned into a little bit longer than I normally do. But if sales feels unpredictable to you, it's not because your team isn't trying. They probably honestly are. It's just because leadership is inconsistent. Real sales leadership is a system that forces truth, builds skills, and drives execution every week. When you install that system, the pipeline gets cleaner, the forecasts become believable, and revenue will stop surprising you at the end of every month. All right. Well, this wraps up that 6-part series, and I hope you guys got something out of this. And if you've followed along through all 6 of these, you now have that full picture. And if you haven't, if you dropped in here on this last one, go back and listen to the rest in the series. So the full picture is like this. Effort isn't the fix. Hiring isn't the fix. Pipeline volume isn't the fix. Meetings aren't the fix. And finally, coaching is not necessarily the fix. Real sales leadership is the system that ties all of that together and is the true fix in the end. I really appreciate you all and want to thank you for listening to the Selling Point podcast. And if this episode connected with you or spoke to you in any way, reach out. Let's see if there's something that we might be able to do for you or help you with. Or send this to another business owner or CEO that is feeling that kind of sales chaos in their own organization. We'd be very glad to help. And until next time, onward